You humiliated him at the barbecue. You need to apologize to my best friend. My wife insisted. I was pressured to say sorry to the man she was quietly betraying me with. Naturally, I apologized, then revealed the evidence to his wife and watched their lies collapse. What if the person you loved most, the one who swore to cherish you, demanded you apologize to the very person they were betraying you with? That's exactly what happened to me. And let me tell you, it set off a chain reaction I never saw coming. It was a 12-hour shift, grueling, exhausting. I walked through my front door, ready for a hello, a kiss, maybe a quiet dinner. Instead, the first words out of Jean's mouth were, "You owe Lim an apology." Just like that. Her voice had that chillingly calm quality. You know the one? The kind women use when they've already decided you're wrong, no matter what you say. I put my lunchbox on the counter, still trying to process. Apology? For what? She crossed her arms, leaned on one hip, her eyes narrowed like a disappointed guidance counselor. You embarrassed him at the barbecue. You got jealous and made a scene. I blinked slowly. You mean, I said, my voice dangerously quiet, when he put his hand on your back and just left it there, like he was reading Braille. Don't twist it, she snapped back, a little too quickly. He was being supportive. I had just told him about my promotion. I couldn't help but let out a dry, humorless laugh. It barely cleared my throat. Supportive, right? I must have missed the part where rubbing your lower back counts as a job. Congratulations. Her face didn't flinch, not even a twitch. It was clear, she'd rehearsed this. She wanted to control the narrative before I even had a chance to sit down. You're being paranoid again, she accused, pushing the dagger in deeper. Lim is my best friend. You've always been insecure about that. Ah, there it was. The magic word. Insecure. The verbal equivalent of a chess player calling you bad at the game right before they slide your queen off the board. No matter what I said next, in her mind, I'd already lost. But something shifted in me then. I just stood there, quietly watching her. I wasn't angry in the way she expected. No yelling. No finger-pointing. Just a strange, deep stillness blooming inside. The kind of stillness that doesn't get loud. It calculates. Okay, I said. She blinked. Okay, what? I'll apologize, I repeated, my voice flat. You're right. I wish I had a camera to capture her face in that moment. It didn't light up with gratitude. Instead, it twitched slightly, like she couldn't figure out why I was so calm, like the script didn't cover the scenario. But she covered it quickly with a bright smile, almost smug, as if she'd just won something. That means a lot, she purred, stepping forward to kiss me on the cheek. Her tone softened. I just want things to be easy again. I nodded, but I didn't kiss her back. Yeah, I muttered. Me too. She didn't notice, or she pretended not to. Now, look, I'm not the kind of guy who blows up or throws accusations. That's just not my style. But something about that exchange got stuck in my throat, like a fishbone. Something didn't fit. The way she was trying to turn my discomfort into his embarrassment. The way she needed me to be the problem so she didn't have to explain him. That's the kind of thing that eats a man from the inside out if he doesn't deal with it. Not with rage, but with precision. That night, as Jean scrolled on her phone beside me in bed, I lay in the dark pretending to be asleep. But I wasn't sleeping. I was listening. Every faint chuckle. Every click of the keyboard. She didn't notice me holding my breath. She didn't notice that I wasn't even blinking. And when she finally rolled over, set her phone on the nightstand, and mumbled a good night like we were just roommates, I just stared at the ceiling fan spin. I wasn't thinking about what to say to Lim. I was thinking about how this had all started to feel less like a marriage and more like a carefully orchestrated public relations campaign I hadn't consented to be a part of. She wanted me to apologize to the man who put his hands on her like she was his property. Fine. I would. But not in the way she expected, and not for what she thought. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. In that tense, fragile way where silence isn't peace. It's theater. Jean floated around the house, humming under her breath, setting her phone face down more often than usual, like she'd just discovered discretion after 10 years of oversharing everything. She'd started dropping Lim's name more often in casual conversation, like saying it enough would normalize him. Lim said the funniest thing at lunch, she'd say while stirring her coffee. Oh, Lim helped me fix that glitching spreadsheet. He's a lifesaver. I'd just nod, chew on my toast, sip my coffee, giving her exactly what she wanted, passive acknowledgement. What she didn't know was that I had stopped listening to her words. I was watching her eyes. You can tell a lot by how someone looks at their phone. Some people look at it like a tool. Jean started looking at hers like it was breathing. She'd smile at it. Not big or theatrical. Just a small, private curve of the lip that didn't belong to anything in the room. I could be sitting 2 feet away and still feel like I was watching someone rehearse intimacy with a ghost. Then, on a Thursday night after dinner, she went to take a shower. Said she'd be quick. Her phone buzzed once on the counter. Then again. The screen lit up just enough to see a preview. You were incredible today. No name. Just a contact picture that had been conveniently replaced with a generic gray silhouette and 2 letters. LM. I'm not a reckless man. I don't snoop. Not usually. But there's a difference between paranoia and pattern recognition. I picked up the phone, swiped, and it unlocked. No code. That part. That told me everything I needed to know. She didn't feel like she was hiding something because, in her head, it wasn't an affair. No, there were no nude photos. Really, nothing that screamed affair to a jury. But what I found was worse, in a way. It was curated, designed affection, digital breadcrumbs, pictures of her at work, selfies from her car, inside jokes buried in threads of you just get me messages, voice notes with him laughing, her calling him a doc when he joked about a dress, screenshots of memes just for the 2 of them. Harmless, right? That's what they always say. Except it wasn't harmless. It was familiar. Yeah, it was hours of this. I didn't flinch, didn't rage. I scrolled for 20 minutes, capturing timestamps, taking screenshots like a surveyor recording erosion damage. Then I opened my email, created a private folder, and sent everything to myself. Every thread, every subtle betrayal, every moment she decided he deserved her tenderness while I got her duty. When she came back from the shower, a towel wrapped in her hair, skin flushed, she saw me standing by the window drinking whiskey. What are you doing? She asked, a little too cheerfully. Thinking, I said, about Wouk and the apology. She seemed satisfied with that answer, almost smug. She walked past me, brushing her arm against mine, a little bounce in her step. Maybe she thought the crisis was over, that her gentle manipulation had put the wolf back in his cage. I watched her settle onto the couch, legs tucked under her, phone in hand, thumbs flying again. The smile was back, the private one, the one that wasn't for me. So, I made a plan. Not to catch her. I already had her. Not to yell. That would give her the upper hand. It would make it all about my reaction instead of her action. No. I decided to do the thing she least expected. Be reasonable. Be quiet. Be methodical. Because when someone's trying to gaslight you into doubting your own sanity, the most dangerous thing you can do is act like the light's still on while you're busy rewiring the whole house. I didn't sleep much that night. But I didn't need sleep. I needed patience, and I had just enough. Saturday morning, I was slicing strawberries like I was auditioning for a cereal commercial. Sunlight streamed through the window, my robe tied just right, suggesting she remembered I existed. I don't get why you're being so weird about this, Jean said, as if we were in the middle of a conversation. Lim's wife isn't bothered by our friendship. She dropped that line like it was the ultimate defense, the sacred shield of innocence. If Claire's fine with it, what's your problem? I didn't look up from the paper, just turned the page. I let the silence grow a little before I replied. Maybe I'll go see him. Talk things out, man to man. That got her attention. Her hand stilled mid-slice, the knife poised over a strawberry like it had just grazed something tender. She didn't expect that. You'd really do that? She asked. Too quickly. I folded the paper. Sure. Maybe I just need to hear it from him. There was that flicker again, that micro-expression of someone who's been bluffing for too long and suddenly finds out the other player hasn't folded. She covered it well, smiling again, her voice syrupy. That means a lot. I just want you guys to get along. I smiled back. Yeah, me too. She went back to slicing, now a little too fast, like she was trying to outrun her thoughts. I picked up my phone and walked into the hall. I pulled up Lim's number. I hadn't texted him in months. There was no need. We existed in that tense, silent purgatory where 2 men who know too much about each other pretend they don't. Hey, can we talk sometime this week? Just us. Think it would help clear the air. He texted back 10 minutes later. Sure. Swing by Monday after work, around 5. Then he sent an address. It wasn't his office. It wasn't a neutral location. It was his house. Claire would be home. Perfect. I stared at the text for a long moment, like a chess player watching the exposed king. Then I went to my laptop and opened a spreadsheet. Not for finances, not for work. For details, dates, patterns, messages. I started logging what I remembered. When Jean was out late. When Lim cancelled plans with Claire. When Jean mentioned being too tired for anything. And I cross-referenced it with those screenshots I had sent myself. I wasn't looking for a single smoking gun. I was assembling the entire arsenal. For the next 48 hours, I filled a folder. A tab for texts, one for pictures, one for overlapping alibis. One particularly damning entry for the weekend, she said she was volunteering at the Design Expo in Baltimore. But Lim's social media photo showed him drinking wine at a hotel bar in D.C., with a blurry reflection in the window behind him that looked suspiciously like the top of Jean's head. Print. Blow it up to 200%. She never knew our cloud account still synced some of her photos to our old shared drive. Rookie mistake. There was one in particular, Jean lying on her side on a hotel bed, a glass of champagne beside her, with the caption, "Room service always tastes better after a win." There was no timestamp on the photo, but the file's metadata told a different story. Same night, same city. I slid it into the folder. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. This wasn't going to be a confrontation. This was going to be a restoration of reality, a moment where reality would be permanently restored. Monday arrived. Jean made me coffee like everything was normal. "You're really going?" she asked. "Yep. Be nice." "I plan on it." She kissed my cheek. Too quickly. "Thanks for being mature about this." I laughed softly. "Yeah, that's me." She left it at that, heading off to her Zoom meeting with her fake branch strategy team. I waited until the clock hit 4:30. Then I picked up the folder, slid it into a plain canvas bag, and headed to Lim's. This wasn't an ambush. It was an autopsy, and I had all the tools. I had spent Sunday in silence. Jean went to yoga, then brunch, then a walk with Marcy from work. I didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. The way we were both pretending felt efficient. Machine-like, like we were colleagues rehearsing a farewell neither of us wanted to say out loud. Fine, I had work to do anyway. I sat at the dining room table with a printer at one end, laptop open, coffee at my elbow. No music, no distractions. Just the quiet click of screenshots becoming paper. Feist, the text messages. I kept them clean. No annotations, no underlining, just the raw dialogue. The kind that didn't scream affair. It whispered erosion. The kind of intimacy you don't share with someone unless you've already left your marriage in your head. There was one text from Lim that hit different. "L, you don't have to explain yourself to him. He doesn't get it." And her response, the one that settled in my gut like wet cement. "J, I stopped trying to explain months ago. Months ago. And yet here she was, still in my house, eating my food, wearing the wedding ring I bought her, pretending we were just in a rough patch." Next, I opened the shared cloud file. Jean never fully disconnected it when she got a new phone. An oversight. I went through old photo backups, organizing them by location and time. Most were mundane, conference rooms, name badges, screenshots of design mock-ups. But one caught my eye. A selfie taken in a hotel room. With her hair still in a bun, a glass of wine in her hand. Low light, not suggestive, but intimate. The caption, "Long day, but worth it." I checked the date, cross-referenced it with her calendar. She told me it was a one-day conference in Philadelphia. Left early morning, said she'd be back that night. But the photo was timestamped 11:23 p.m. The next image, a breakfast tray, timestamped 7:15 a.m. She hadn't come home, hadn't even told me. And then another picture I hadn't expected to find. Not taken by her, but saved from a shared album she'd forgotten to unlink. A group photo, business casual, name badges, a booth sign in the background. Lim off to one side with an arm over her shoulders. Jean leaning into him slightly, laughing. It wasn't the pose. It was the comfort, the naturalness of it, the kind you don't fake with someone who's just a friend. I ran it through a metadata checker. Same location, same weekend. I kept printing. I found their shared Spotify list of songs they'd both liked, traded back and forth, even added to a playlist called Wow Hustle Vibes. Except none of those songs had ever played in our house. I printed that list, too. Then I made a timeline. Not detailed, just enough to make it visual. A line that cut through our last 8 months. Where had she gone? When she changed? When Lim's name started coming up more, and mine started coming up less. I didn't write a single angry word. This wasn't a manifesto. It was a presentation. By 6 p.m., I had 3 neatly organized sections. Communication, location overlap, and inferred intimacy. No accusations. Just facts. Facts with dates, pictures, and silence. It's the silence that breaks people. The moment they see you haven't yelled, not because you're weak, but because you've already left. I put it all in a cheap manila folder. Not a briefcase. Nothing formal. Just something boring. Disposable. The folder wasn't for Jean, and it sure as hell wasn't for Lim. It was for Claire. She was the variable no one had ever accounted for. The collateral damage. The innocent bystander. The only woman in this whole equation who deserved the truth. I don't know her well. We'd met in passing, maybe a couple of times. Polite smiles, holiday waves from a distance. But I remembered her eyes, elate, kind, a little tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying the weight of a household while your husband plays harmless emotional support animal for another woman. They always say it wasn't physical. Like that's some badge of honor. Like dragging someone through a slow-burn emotional affair doesn't poison, just the same. Let them explain it to her. Let her decide what kind of marriage she's been living in. That night, Jean asked me what I wanted for dinner. I told her I was eating out. Said I had a meeting. She didn't ask who with. I guess she assumed it was Lim. She was half right. Lim lived in one of those split-level suburban houses that screamed, "We're doing okay," in that fake home deco show kind of way. Beige vinyl siding, ceramic house numbers, a seasonal wreath on the door. The kind of place where couples post filtered pictures at a pumpkin patch while silently negotiating who sleeps on the farthest edge of the bed that week. I parked across the street with the engine off, the folder on the passenger seat, and just sat for a minute, watching as the porch light flickered on automatically, programmed everything in their world, probably synced to their thermostat. At exactly 5:30, I got out and walked up the driveway. The front door opened before I could knock. "Hey, man." Lim smiled like we were long-lost fraternity brothers. "Glad you came. Jean said you wanted to patch things up." Patch things up. He was wearing that smug, diplomatic smile people get when they think you've finally accepted your supporting role in their emotional play. Like he'd won something, and he'd graciously allow me to have my dignity back in the credits. I nodded. "Thanks for having me." Stepping inside, I smelled citrus. A diffuser in the corner, probably Claire's thing. A quiet, clean, comfortable, forgettable house. Claire came out of the kitchen with a dish towel in her hands. She was shorter than I remembered, wearing a soft blue sweater, jeans, no makeup. She looked honest. Not in that perfect Pinterest way, but in the "I've been carrying the load around here" way. "You must be Scott," she said warmly, like she didn't already suspect the atmosphere in the room was about to change. "Hey, Claire, you guys mind if I talk to both of you for a second?" Lim's head tilted slightly, not enough to register alarm. Just that subtle movement animals make when they smell smoke but haven't seen the flame yet. Claire looked at him, then at me. "Of course." They both moved toward the open-plan living room with a gray sectional couch, throw pillows with words like home and us embroidered on them. I waited for them both to be seated. Then I walked in slowly, like I was inspecting the room for weight distribution. I took the chair opposite them, neutral, non-aggressive, but scented. I set the folder on the coffee table gently. Neither of them touched it, but they both saw it. "I came to apologize," I said, looking Lim straight in the eye. His expression softened. Relief. He thought this was over. He'd probably rehearsed his benevolent speech about boundaries and communication. But not for what Jean thinks. Claire's eyes shifted to her husband, then to me. Lim's smile tightened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not here to apologize for being possessive or paranoid or whatever narrative is floating around. I'm here to set something very straight, in front of both of you." Claire shifted in her seat, the dish towel now wadded up in her lap. I didn't move, didn't raise my voice, just leaned back slightly. "I've been watching, and I've been listening. I didn't come here to guess. I came here with facts." I nodded toward the folder. Claire reached for it slowly, like it might be hot. Lim opened his mouth, then closed it. "I'd rather you hear it first," I said to Claire, "because I don't think anyone's been telling you the truth for a long time." She hesitated, then she opened the cover. Lim spoke finally. "Scott, this isn't—" I held up a hand. "Just a flick. A slight but firm gesture. Let her read." Claire's eyes scanned the first page. Text messages. Dates. Not explicit, but laid enough to turn your stomach. The second page, the hotel photo. Her face didn't change. She just kept reading. Lim's breathing got shallower. You could hear that low rasp now. That happens when the body starts processing panic. His knees started to bounce. "You brought this here?" he asked quietly. "I didn't," I said. "I brought her here." Claire turned another page, paused, then another. Every flip of the paper sounded louder than it should in that clean, quiet house. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. The folder was doing all the work. I had just delivered it. The tension in the room wasn't explosive. It was surgical, like watching a scalpel glide through something that once held pressure until it doesn't. Lim leaned forward as if to take the folder from her. She pulled it a little closer to her lap. He stopped. Good. She was still reading, and I was just getting started. Clay's hands were shaking slightly as she turned the next page, but her face remained composed. Not blank. Composed. That quiet, terrifying calm that only surfaces when someone's soul has gone into shock and the body is still pretending everything is okay. I watched her, not because I needed to see the damage, but because she deserved to have someone in the room who wasn't lying to her. Then I said it. Claire. I started, my voice even, almost gentle. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. She didn't look up, but I saw her blink once. Slowly. That's when I knew she'd heard me. I turned to Lim. He was already looking at me. Not angry. Not defensive. Just white. Pale. In that washed-out way that only comes from sudden exposure. He looked like a man who just realized the door he'd walked through had no handle on the other side. I continued, my tone shifting slightly. Firmer. Sharper. An edge of contempt buried under the politeness. I'm sorry I didn't talk to you like a man sooner. That's on me. He opened his mouth, maybe to argue or deflect, but I didn't give him the oxygen. Instead, I leaned forward, opened the folder again, and handed it directly to Claire again. This time, not like an object, but like a verdict. Your husband and my wife, I said calmly, have been in an emotional affair for years. This isn't speculation. It's not misunderstandings or blown out of proportion screenshots. Claire finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy now. Not crying. Not yet. But you could see the pressure building behind the glass. This is a pattern, I continued, of trust, of time, of intimacy that had no business being between two people who are married to other people. I leaned back. My job was done. Claire looked at Lim like she had never really seen him. And that's when my phone lit up on the table. 6 missed calls. It buzzed again. Jean. 7 missed calls. And again. 8 missed calls. Lim looked at it, then at me, panicking. His eyes said, she knows. She's calling about this. I reached over, picked up the phone, and turned it off without even looking at the screen. I didn't silence it. I turned it completely off. The act was deliberate, symbolic. It said, we're not negotiating anymore. Lim tried again. This time, his voice weak and reedy, the kind people use when they know their version of the story is dying in real time. Scott, listen. I swear to you, it was never physical. I mean, not like you think. I turned my eyes on him, cold as steel. Are you sure you want to stick with that sentence with Claire in the room? He went silent. Claire blinked again, then turned another page. There it was. The selfie of Jean on the hotel bed. The same room as the one in Lim's picture. 2 champagne glasses. No caption this time. Just the visual math anyone could solve. Claire exhaled through her nose, like someone slowly realizing they'd been breathing secondhand air for a decade. Still, no one yelled. Because yelling wasn't necessary anymore. The truth was in the room. It didn't need volume. It had mass now. Lim leaned forward in his seat. Claire, no, she said softly, but firmly. Don't. One word. That's all it took to freeze him. She looked at me again, and this time there was gratitude mixed with pain. Yes, but somewhere under the rubble, I saw something else. Relief. Relief that someone had finally stopped lying to her. I stood up. Claire, I'm sorry for ruining your night. I don't need anything from you. I just thought you deserved to know what room you've been living in. I looked at Lim one last time. As for you, don't worry. Jean will be calling you next. He looked like he wanted to say something brave. But cowards don't mature into courage. They mature into silence. As I reached the door, I heard Claire's voice. Quiet. Broken. How long? Lim didn't answer. I didn't turn around. The door clicked shut behind me. And that right there was the first real apology anyone had offered in that house in years. The door hadn't even finished closing behind me when I heard the crack of something soft but final. Maybe a picture frame. Maybe a vase. Something small that used to mean something. Now it meant evidence. I didn't stop walking. But for the sake of honesty, I'll tell you what happened inside, because I can picture it in vivid detail. And Claire confirmed some of it later. She kept turning pages, texts, screenshots, metadata, hotel bills. The ones Lim had probably told her were for networking events or quick trips barely worth packing for. Every lie has a shape, and every shape leaves a hole when it collapses. Claire studied the printouts like she was solving her own kidnapping. Not frantically, not emotionally, systemically. That's what broke Lim more than anything. She didn't scream. She processed. This isn't what you think, he stammered, gesturing at the photos like they were misfiled receipts. They had taken out of context. That hotel. She had her own room. No, it wasn't physical. It was emotional, maybe, but not in that way. Claire, still not looking up, just turned another page. He kept talking. She leaned on me. I leaned on her. We were both going through things. It got blurry, but I didn't cross any lines. Claire, still not looking at him, asked, "Did you ever delete my texts when she was texting you?" Lim froze. That was the moment. Not the hotel bill. Not the photo of Jean wearing his sweatshirt. Not even the voice note where Jean was laughing. "I can't believe we almost got caught in the elevator. Your face was priceless." No. The thing that cracked the shell wide open was that question. Did you delete me for her? Because that's not something you do for just a friend. Lim tried to pivot again. "Claire, honey, please. You know me. You know my heart. You never wanted me to find out." She cut him off. And then whispered it. "I want you to leave this house." That sentence didn't shake the walls. It dismantled the foundation. Lim's jaw went slack, like he was about to launch into another excuse. But the words died. His mouth moved. His eyes scanned the room, looking for something to hold onto. Nothing. No handholds left. She didn't yell. She didn't sob. She just set the folder on the couch beside her and stood up, like her bones suddenly remembered they weren't made of compromise. "I want you to leave," she said again. He just sat there, waiting for inertia to buy him some mercy. She turned and walked down the hall without another word. When she came back, she dropped a duffel bag at his feet. He hadn't packed it. She had. That's when he realized she'd suspected something for longer than he wanted to believe. He stood up slowly, arms hanging limp, lips parted like a child caught stealing. But Claire didn't even look at him. And me? Well, I was gone by then. No victory speech. No moral high ground. No movie one-liner. Just the cool evening air and the sound of a life coming apart behind me. I didn't even feel triumphant. It wasn't satisfaction. It was symmetry. Two people had built something dishonest behind my back. I just brought it into the light. I got in the car and didn't start it right away. I just sat there with my hands on the wheel, watching the reflection of the house in the rearview mirror. Lim didn't come running out after me. Claire didn't chase me down to thank me. Good. This wasn't about me being a hero. It was about cutting the cord that powered two people's self-deception and walking away while they stayed at the smoke. I didn't take the folder with me. I left it on the table because I wasn't the one who needed the proof anymore. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and desperation. Jean always cleaned when she was nervous. Not real cleaning. The cosmetic kind. Wiping surfaces, overspraying countertops, blankets folded just so. A quiet, frantic ritual to create the illusion that nothing is wrong. She was pacing near the front door when I walked in. Hair pulled back like she hadn't left the house. No shoes. Just socks sliding on the hardwood as she stopped dead. "Where were you?" Her voice was sharp, but brittle. She was expecting a lie, some forgettable excuse that would give her room to keep pretending. "Apologizing," I said, setting my keys down slowly on the small table. Her eyes narrowed, her mouth twisted into a half smile, the kind people get when they think they've just heard a joke, but haven't gotten the punchline yet. "Apologizing to Ling." "MHM," I nodded, taking off my jacket. "For what exactly?" She tried to sound casual, but I could hear it, that knot behind her throat. Something was wrong, and she knew it, like a tightrope walker realizing halfway across that the tension in the wire has changed. "I told him the truth," I said, walking past her into the living room. In front of Claire. Silence, then footsteps behind me. "Quick, now what did you do?" "What?" She caught up to me, grabbed my arm. "What truth?" I looked at her hand on my sleeve, then at her face. Cheeks flushed, eyes wide, a tiny smudge of mascara on her lower lid. She hadn't cried yet, but her body knew it was coming. I didn't raise my voice, didn't flinch. I told him what's been going on, what I've seen, what I found. I showed Claire. And there it was, like watching a pane of glass crack from the center out in a spiderweb. Her face didn't shatter. It cracked slowly. She took a step back. "You told Clay." I nodded. "You've ruined everything." Now the tears came instantly. No build-up, a turn of a faucet. On-demand drama. But not the heartbroken kind of crying. These were strategy tears, damage control tears, manufactured grief. "You don't understand," she said, pacing again. "It was just, he understood me. He was going through a lot. And you were always so distant." I held up a hand. She didn't stop. "I'm not interested in your version of the story, Jean." "You ambushed me," she hissed. "You should have talked to me first. You would have lied." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You would have said it wasn't physical, that you were just close, that it was nothing." "It was nothing," she yelled, but her voice broke on the second word. I tilted my head. "Then why are you crying like your world just collapsed?" She froze. That silence. That was the moment she realized the steering wheel was no longer in her hands. The narrative was no longer hers to control. I didn't wait. I went to the bedroom. I grabbed a small duffel bag I'd already packed, a change of clothes, a toothbrush. Nothing dramatic. Just done. She followed me into the hall. What are you doing? Giving us space. Her voice rose again. So what? You're just leaving? I'll stay somewhere else for now. For now, she repeated, her voice cracking. So you think you can just walk out and what? Punish me? Make me feel guilty? I zipped the bag shut, slung it over my shoulder. Guilt isn't something you make someone feel. It's just the sound the truth makes when it finally hits the floor. Then she started to sob for real this time, the kind that folds your body in half. But I didn't go to her. I walked past her in the hall, down the stairs, and stopped at the front door. You've ruined everything, she whispered again, quietly. Now I turned to her, met her eyes one last time. I didn't, I said. You did. I just stopped covering for you. And then I walked out. No slamming doors, no theatrics. Just a man choosing silence over chaos. Because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the only thing strong enough to end the performance. The next morning, Jean texted, please come home. We need to talk. By noon, she had sent 6 more. One was a long paragraph about how it had all been confusing and how I'd misinterpreted so many things. She used phrases like emotional proximity and complex bonds. The kind of nonsense you get from self-help blogs and weaponize when you get caught. But I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. Just clarity. She tried calling too. Left voicemails that sounded rehearsed. Pauses in the right places. Shaky breaths to sell remorse. By the afternoon, she'd moved on to phase 2 of damage control, apologizing to Claire. Big mistake. Claire blocked her. Instantly. She'd had her closure. She didn't need Jean's public relations tour. Lim, meanwhile, had moved into a mid-range hotel off the highway. The kind of place with sad wallpaper and a continental breakfast that smells like damp toast. He texted me once. It just said, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. He wasn't the point anymore. He never really was. I didn't post about it. I didn't go telling friends or neighbors. There were no group chats filled with venting or guess what she did stories. Instead, I scheduled a quiet meeting with a reputable lawyer. A measured man. No histrionics. No drama. We sat in his office. Just the two of us. A legal pad. I wasn't there to destroy anyone. I was there to reclaim the space I'd been pushed out of in my own life. We talked options, discussed timelines. No yelling, no threats. Just facts. The next day, Jean showed up at my temporary apartment unannounced. I opened the door, and she looked smaller. Like the story she'd built around herself had finally collapsed. And now she had to wear the truth like a sweater 2 sizes too big. I know I messed up, she whispered. I didn't say anything. I was lonely. Scut, she added, trying to fill the silence. And Lim he was just there. He saw me. You stopped seeing me. That was the version she was settling on. My crime was distraction. Her punishment, betrayal. I'm not here to fight, she said quickly. I just need to know if this is it. If you're really done. I stepped aside. Let her in. Let her talk. She went on for 20 minutes. Apologies mixed with rationalizations. Memories twisted into knots of justification. She cried, wiped her eyes, touched my arm like proximity could rewind the story. And then she said it. We can try again. Please. I'll do the work. I'll cut off contact. I'll do whatever it takes. I looked at her for a long moment. Not with hate. Not even with sadness. Just observation. You wanted me to apologize. I said. She nodded, confused. What? For making Lim uncomfortable. I continued. That was your big request. The start of all this. I didn't know what else to say, she stammered. I panicked. I gave a small, empty smile. Well, I did what you asked. I apologized. And Jean, that's the last thing I'm ever doing for you. She didn't cry right away. Just froze, like her brain had short-circuited. Like she realized she had no more pages left in the script. I never wanted this, she whispered. I nodded. Me neither. But you chose it every day you texted him back. She stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I would break, that I would reach out, that I'd offer some poetic gesture that would absolve her. I didn't. Finally, she left. No hug. No promise. Just the sound of the door closing behind her. The end. Not because I said so, but because the version of me that would have once forgiven her didn't live here anymore. The apartment I moved into isn't much. 1 bedroom, mismatched plates, no headboard. Just clean walls and quiet floors. The kind of place you don't bring someone to impress. You bring yourself to breathe. It's on the third floor of a brick walk-up with a small balcony that gets the afternoon sun right on schedule. I bought a second-hand armchair and put it by the sliding glass door. That's where I sit most evenings. No blaring TV, no tension-filled dinner conversations. Just the slow, deliberate sound of peace settling back into my bones. I wake up when I want. I cook for myself. Wake, walk, sleep, repeat. You might think it's lonely, and maybe it is in a way, but not the kind of loneliness that eats at you. It's the kind that heals. The kind that doesn't ask you to explain yourself every day. About 4 months after the folder incident, I got an email from Claire. Simple subject line, thank you. Inside, just a few lines. I don't know how long I would have kept going if you hadn't said something. I kept gaslighting myself into doubting my judgment. I thought I was being insecure or needy or paranoid. Thank you for pulling back the curtain. I would have stayed in the dark forever. I stayed at the message for a long time, not because I was surprised, but because it settled something. I replied that afternoon, you deserve better. We both did. No sign-off, no awkward farewell. It was the last time we ever spoke. And it was enough. Jean's letter came a week later. Cream-colored envelope, handwritten, no return address. But I recognized the looping, flowing script instantly. She always dotted her I's with a little hook, like a fish hook. Inside, 3 neatly folded pages. The kind of apology people write when they know they've lost the right to speak, but do it anyway out of hope or guilt. It said she missed me, that she'd started therapy, that she'd been looking through our old photos and realized how far she'd strayed. She wrote about her parents' divorce, about childhood wounds, about how Lim had filled a void that wasn't his to fill. She asked if we could meet just once for coffee, to talk, to maybe see if anything could be salvaged between 2 people who once meant everything to each other. I read the letter once, then again, slower. Then I folded it in half, walked to the kitchen, opened the trash can drawer, and dropped it inside. No ceremony, no dramatic burning, just paper meeting plastic. I washed my hands, opened the cupboard, pulled out my favorite mug, the one with a tiny chip on the handle that no one else ever noticed. I made myself a coffee and walked out onto the balcony. The sun was starting to set, casting a golden light on the rooftops, a warm, tired light, like the day was breathing out. I sat down, took a sip, and smiled. Not a big smile, not a dramatic one, just enough to acknowledge the quiet. No more tangled stories, no more questions about where she was, or who he was, or who I was in the equation. Just light, just me, not healed, not broken, just whole enough. And for the first time in years, no one else's silence was louder than mine. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and revealing an uncomfortable truth? What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below.